Today is May Day in Barbados, a day dedicated to celebrate workers. Today, I have with me the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, Senator Toni. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. Well, yes, first of all, happy Workers' Day, happy May Day. Today is our day of international solidarity where we take a time out and celebrate workers and their contributions to our economies, to our livelihoods across the world. And today I just want to give a special shout out to all workers who are contributing meaningfully to our country's development and sustainability at this time.
We'll shift the focus of our interview now to the world of work now. You just mentioned this is the International Day. Since this pandemic, we've seen a significant shift in how the world of work has shaped up. What is the situation in Barbados? What have you seen the trends developing in Barbados, and how have your workers been responding to it?
Across the globe, the world of work has been changing for some time, perhaps at a faster pace than it has been in Barbados. And in Barbados, we have been experiencing change, yes, but what COVID-19 has done, it has certainly fast-tracked those changes. For at least 4 or 5 years now, a number of countries have been in an industrial wave, what we call the third revolution, industrial revolution. And that is really based on technology, the coming of artificial intelligence. And in Barbados, we know about it. We are seeing glimpses of advances into a digital economy and so on. But what COVID-19 has done, it has hastened our steps in getting there. Have we been prepared? Are we prepared? In many respects, no. But expediency now requires that we do a lot of things differently, and that we do a lot of things differently now. So the world of work has been changing, but more significantly so over the past 5 weeks. We have seen workers not in their physical places of work, but we've seen a lot of workers having to work from at home, for instance, and that is a significant change for many, not for all, because we've had workers in telecommunications and other areas that customarily work from at home. But for many, including myself, we have been made remote from our physical workplaces, and that is a fundamental change, because it's not only a change in physical space where one can move from a workplace to home and everything else falls into place, but it is a change that sees us acclimatizing to our home environment and trying to balance that with a work environment. Many employees have been trying and should be commended for the effort. But what I'm sure a number of them are experiencing is that challenge of ergonomics, not having a suitable workspace, things that we as trade unions insist on for the work environment, but people now working from at home may not have suitable chairs. Maybe some people might feel comfortable lying on their beds, but then what does that mean for neck pains and back pains and so on? And then the visual impact, constantly having to stare at a screen because that's how you're doing your work now. So the changes, yes, thrust upon us. And now what we have to be doing in Barbados is catching up to those changes, now working with employers and through the Ministry of Labor and for public servants through the Ministry of the Public Service to establish rules around how people will now work from home and the conditions that must be made available to people to allow them to be at their peak of productivity. So that's one fundamental change.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Senator Moore, because I would have noted in another interview that you would have made mention of one of the challenges being sometimes employers not respecting the normal working hours because you're working from home, so you have 24-hour accessibility, and that has created a problem for workers. And you would have noted as well too in Barbados, over the past 5 weeks, we would have been thrust into workers. I know one thing that union stresses on is consultation as it relates to
Oh
making
yeah.
sure that you have all of these policies in place. So with that challenge of what we're seeing with the workers at home and the challenges they're experiencing, what is the union now advocating for to ensure that there is some kind of policy to ensure that some of these challenges do not occur further?
Well, the union, the Barbados Workers Union, has been at the forefront of policy development that is now in place, that has been approved by the Cabinet of Barbados, a national wellness policy, which came into effect last year. And that is because we have been very connected with the transformations in the world of work. We have been very aware of what will be required for our workforce. And every opportunity we get, we seek to highlight what we know is coming, what we know is here, and try to address how best we can deal with it. And I start there because that national wellness policy, which has been adopted by Barbados, becomes so critical right now, as we have it as a reference point, not only to address physical safety and health measures in a workplace, but the overall wellness and well-being of workers, their mental health, making sure that people have the requisite training to do what is required of them. People want to be productive, but they have to have the means of by which they can be at their maximum productivity. And what we have been doing, or have had to be doing specifically in the last 5 weeks, relates to that. As I said, we're playing catch up where there are no rules and terms and conditions established in many respects for what we're required to do now. So we've been very busy as a union engaging employers, treating to, yes, the health issues which are at the forefront, making sure that when people get back into a workspace that there's personal protective equipment and so on, that physical distancing protocols can be established. But also, we have been examining as a union how we need to use this occasion now that the stark reality of the absence of a lot of protection measures is before not only unions now, but all of us, how we can use this time to propel our efforts to have tighter controls as it relates to occupational safety and health, and also how we can get such things as health insurance and other social protection measures in place for workers generally.
I know that your membership in particular would have been significantly impacted by the economic fallout as it relates to being laid off. You would have seen the private sector closing down, and you would have seen a news report saying about 29,000 people have applied to the national insurance scheme because they have been laid off. What has been the general feedback from your membership, from those who are laid off, and is the union in a position to offer any assistance to those most vulnerable workers who were laid off?
Well, every year we expect in the area of tourism, for instance, to have a fall off, but we've never had total shutdown of the tourism sector. And of course, we know that's not unique to Barbados. And yes, you've mentioned that as it relates to the national insurance figures, the claims for unemployment before the national insurance, that number is phenomenal. Barbados has never seen numbers like this before. We've gone through other crises and we've seen drastic moves in unemployment, but none as what has been occasioned by COVID-19. What brings me comfort to some extent, if for want of a better word, is that because I also am a member of the National Insurance Board, so we are watching those figures. And what I've recognized is that a lot of the layoff has been occasioned by the shutdown, the lockdown. And I don't imagine that a lot of it will be for longer term. We have unemployment insurance provisions of 26 weeks. So when I say longer term, I don't imagine that a lot of that outside of tourism and the areas directly impacted may necessarily be for the full 26 weeks. So when we see the country opening back up on a phased basis, as is expected from Monday coming, May the 4th, and then some more on the 18th of May, those figures may change. And naturally, as a workers' representative, I'm optimistic that those figures will change drastically. As it relates to what the Barbados Workers Union is doing, I imagine that you mean outside of the negotiations that have been taking place and the crisis negotiations that will continue to take place. You would want to know what we are doing and what we can do. It is very challenging for the BWU at this time. It's a membership-based organization that functions on membership dues coming in at $26 per month. And as you would be aware, where our members are impacted and in large numbers, then just like the government having to cater to an entire country, it is a large section of our workforce that if we look towards reaching out in financial terms to all of them, it becomes a little challenging because we may very well find ourselves doing something for each person that is impacted, but that's something not being significant enough to offer any easement because financial resources just are not available to us to reach out to every single person. But what we have been doing is challenging our divisions where we represent companies, workers in companies, we call it divisions. And we have been challenging divisions to identify those among them who they consider most vulnerable so that on a case-by-case basis, we can see how we might reach out to them. And that's as it relates to the financial aspect. I know that members of our executive council as well have been very busy trying to identify people who will be in most direct need of our help. Because there's not every worker that is impacted that will need help, because some workers will have support systems that others do not. Outside of the financial, what we have been very aware of at this time is that there are a lot of psychosocial impacts that we have to address, particularly as it relates to mental health. So we have also made our chaplain, Archdeacon Eric Lynch, we've made him available to our membership, offering his direct contact numbers for counseling, for prayer, for support, and that takes care of the spiritual side. Because yes, our officers are engaged daily in offering that psychosocial support. But at this time, especially now as uncertainty looms, workers are aware that their companies may not survive through this, and therefore their own sustainability is threatened. We have to cater to those needs, and not only from the perspective of job security, but I mentioned health security as well. Workers understanding quite well, we have to go back out there. We have to secure our livelihoods. We have to work. But what if the situation that presented itself at the NAB becomes a reality for us? What if the situation that presented itself at the call center in Jamaica that saw over 200 employees then impacted by COVID-19, what if that comes to us? So there are natural fears, and we've been very cognizant of the need to address all of these. So our mandate and our mission of improving the well-being of all that we have been reciting over the years in times of crisis, and particularly in this one, it has hit us head on, and we have been perhaps busier as an organization trying to address competing needs and multifaceted needs more busy than we have been for some time.
And Senator Moore, my final question to you is, we would have acknowledged throughout this interview that the way in which we work will be changed significantly. Where does the Barbados Workers Union want to see the position as it relates to the labor force and industrial relations overall after this pandemic? What is the way forward that your union sees for the country?
Kobie, definitely, I would wish to see a labor force that is stronger post COVID-19. There are many people speaking about getting back to normal. I understand the sentiment and what many mean when they say that, but I am still very critical of the sentiment to the extent that normal, in many respects, would be a return to a system that I would consider has been broken, a system that has been in need of repair for some time. Because under the system, the normal system, not only in Barbados, but across the world, workers have not been getting their fair share. Workers, representatives like myself, come under direct attack for wanting to maintain a status quo of rights and conditions in the workplace. We come under attack for not being connected to the realities of the world out there, the business world. But the realities of the world, as we observe growing inequality, not only in Barbados, but across the globe, is because there are those who are getting richer on the backs of those who have to be offering more and more of themselves. And we find more and more employers willing to take a bigger share from workers seeking to minimize their conditions and their wages and so on. So I would want to see a Barbados come post COVID-19 within the next 5 years. I would want to see a labor force that is stronger, a labor force that reflects high productivity. Yes, because our theme for May Day observance this year is secure workers, sustainable economies. And the only way we will have a sustainable economy is if we have productive engagement of the labor force. So with that productive engagement, we want to see new jobs being created. So the government initiative of establishing a jobs creation commission, that is timely and no time should be spared in getting the wheels motion in that regard. We want to see widened social protection for the labor force. Look what COVID-19 has done. Only formal workers have access to unemployment insurance, so that the government now has to be extending its hand to self-employed people. And there are so many who have not, but only the ones who've been paying into the system in some form or fashion. But what about those self-employed people who cannot benefit? What about the many hairdressers out there, the many barbers out there, the people who might be doing hair braiding, selling food on the side? What is going to happen to these people if the economy does not pick up to a stage that they can make a living? So then training facilities have to be in place, recognizing that jobs will be removed from the labor force, new jobs will be created. We have to move more swiftly, more expediency as a country, and leaders like myself have to be engaged to ensure that we have a voice, have a say in influencing jobs of the future and providing for our people avenues that they can train themselves, upskill themselves, retool themselves for these jobs. I also want to see a healthier workforce. We've had safety and health legislation in place since 2005. One of the requirements of that safety and health legislation under Section 103 is that we should have health and safety committees established where issues relating to health, safety, and wellness are managed at that level. For the 15 years, for most of the 15 years, that legislation has been observed too largely in the breach. And COVID-19 has brought us face to face with the realities surrounding health, the negative consequences of not putting systems in place. So I'm hoping that out of this, we can also have healthier workplaces and therefore a healthier workforce. What I can say, all in all, is that we have some very tough times ahead. The Barbados Workers Union is aware of that, and it would be remiss of me not to say to workers of Barbados that perhaps now is the time that you may recognize the need to join a union. Because for some time, the rhetoric and everywhere you turn, the questions are, how relevant is the union? I've had calls from people who are not members who are saying that employers have enforced mandatory pay cuts or offer them a pay cut, or we will have to sever you. With a union involved, we have discussions around other meaningful ways that we can address a situation to ensure that the worker remains whole, the company can also remain whole, and the country benefits because we can reduce the negative impact on our national insurance system. So tough days ahead, a lot of work to do, but I shouldn't end also without saying that I am excited as a labor leader. I'm excited to be leading a workforce in this time because while we have in the immediate short term to be addressing a lot of the challenges and putting in place stopgap measures, I am more excited about the future, the prospects that we have ahead for a more developed, engaged, fair, equitable Barbados. And I think COVID-19 has done a whirlwind of things, and it has also positioned us to do better.